Well, good morning. A little late start today. Sorry about that. That's the way it goes. Waiting on John. I told him 10 o'clock, and I just called him, but no answer. So he'll be on in a minute. First thing I need to do is I'm going to need to cut this motor mount out and glue some end grain wood to it. This is not quite big enough. Let me look at my block file real quick. Hang on. Let's see. I mean, that'd work. Let me look one more time. Not quite big enough. Got this. There's two pieces of this glued together. Yeah, this is it right here. Shit. There we go. John will be with us shortly. So what I'm doing here is I'm making a block, end grain block, to set this motor in. Yeah. Come on, John. It's snowing. Things don't work good when it snows. Okay. Now I need to sand this flush, sand it square. Yeah. We're gonna have to get that pile of wood off the floor. Okay. Okay, the motor mount needs to be cut to that size right there. Then this will glue to the front of that. And the angle will be put on it like so, and it will all slip. I mean, this thing ain't going nowhere when it's finished. So let's cut my motor mount up. Make sure it's the right size before I go too crazy. Cut a little big, I guess. It'll be fine. So I'm going to cut outside the line, and we'll sneak up sanding it onto this sander so it fits perfect. Hopefully. Hard stuff there. Smoke my jigsaw blade. Raise it up, maybe. It toasted that jigsaw blade for sure, and this is some hard stuff. Let me buzz it on the sander real quick. Not gonna take much. Nope, a little more. Gotta go down to that line. That'll work. That'll work. I think I need to take a little off the height though. Oh, John's on. Okay, John. Click this link and we'll get ready to go. He can take up the slack while I'm doing this. Yep, there we are. Okay, we'll bring John aboard. And there you are, John. Good morning.
Hello, everybody. What's going on?
I'm just tinkering away on this stupid thing.
Yeah, it's a never-ending process, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm making wheels.
I'll show everybody what you're doing. Let's see here.
Well, I can't quite get the camera all the way over there, but there's some wheels that I'm making. Some prop shaft extensions and whatnot. And over on the mill, I've got, you probably can't see them. I'm making bigger wheels. Let's put it that way.
Tell us about your airplane you got sitting there. You hear me?
It's the same airplane as what I had before. Can you hear me?
Oh yeah.
Okay, I'm trying to mute the echo out of here. This is the same airplane. It's the Geo XL actually with different wingtips. Sort of a lost foam deal that I made up. A little bit different body shape. Fin and rudder's a little bit different. Basically, it's just the tips and stuff that are different.
The most important thing is how much a puppy weigh.
Well, we're looking at, hopefully, as we figured out last week, to come in at 60 ounces. I mean, last week when we were looking at it, we put it on the scale, and it looked promising to be able to hit 60 ounces. That's with a PA 75 in it and a pipe, you know, and the header and all that kind of stuff. I use one more hinge than what Sparky normally does. I put 3 in the elevators and 4 in the flaps. He uses 2 and 3, I think.
Yep.
Which is, I don't know how much weight.
Doesn't say much weight, but it keeps it from binding up.
Well, the way we do it with that rod system is pretty hard to have a bind in them. You know, I mean, you have to really have something. I mean, the hinges alone are a lot freer than anything else that's out there that you can get. So if you wanted to, let me turn this camera around. So if you wanted to, you know, get anything freer, you had to do what I was doing with, you know, the plastic barrel type hinges, you know, like a door hinge type hinge. I was cutting the pins out of the stock ones and using the next smaller piece of music wire in them and doing like the old Klett hinges with just an L-shaped piece of wire. And that freed them up quite a bit. Plus, you could get into them and you could clean out any flash that was on them from the factory. And I don't know. It takes you about, for a whole airplane, I think it was taking me like, I don't know, probably a good hour and a half to sit there and do all the hinges, you know, for one airplane. What I did to, you know, as far as freeing them up, you can't take them out of the package. You take them out of the package, and all you have to do is just shake them, and you'll see if they're any good. And if you bend them and they click, well, they've got something wrong. You got to get in there and clean out the flashing or whatever, you know, because there shouldn't be any clicking or anything like that. And the smaller wire helps because that loosens everything up. It doesn't create any kind of ill effects on the airplane on how it handles or anything like that. I mean, but with this hinge system that we're using now with the carbon tube and the Sparky's hinges and a wire, you can't get much freer than that. You know, you disconnect the controls, the flaps from it, and they just flop under their weight without any problem.
Yeah.
So you know how it is, Sparky. You did do plenty of them. So, have you talked to Dan lately?
No, I haven't.
Wonder what he's up to.
Sitting in the chair. Get out of the chair, Dan. Into the garage.
I'm being a noisemaker again. I'm making the rims for the bigger set of wheels, which everybody said those wheels only came in one size, and I've got proof. I've got a large set on an airplane out there, and I got a small set on an airplane.
I do too. I got small and large.
And so when I made the rubbers for them, I made two sizes. I made a size for the large ones, a size for the small ones. Now, that's been said, please, by all means, if you got a set of these things from me, soak them in some warm water for a few minutes, some scalding hot water for that matter, for a few minutes before you go and stick them on, and stick them on while they're hot, because they can split. And I did have one that split on me trying to stick it over the rim. Now I was dawdling around and, sort of taking my time, and I left it sort of halfway off and halfway on for too long, and it did develop a little split. Now, whether it would have, the split in flight or something like that, I don't know. I don't think so. When I put it all the way on the rim, you couldn't see it, so it just was a little bit around the edge. And I don't think we get going fast enough to make those things balloon out.
No.
You know what I mean? I mean, you're only spinning them for seconds on takeoff and landing, and what do you do? 50 miles an hour, 55 miles an hour at the most. So they're not going to balloon out like on a tether car or something like that, or
Top fuel car.
yeah. Well, not like a drag slick or something like that. They're basically going to look the same. My wheels. I'll show you what I got going here. I turned these down yesterday, and I made about 8 of them or 10 of them.
Hold it up closer to the camera. There you go.
These are just the blanks for the wheels, and I turned the OD and then drilled and reamed the hole for the bushing. And now today I'm taking this blank, sort of getting a glare off the lights, and I'm turning this, which is the inset where the holes are drilled at, on them on both sides, cutting that out. Once I do that, I'll put them all back on and I'll drill the holes in all of them. The only reason why I don't just leave one wheel in a fixture and just keep working on it until it's done, because you got to keep changing back and forth from one bit to another bit to another bit. And so rather than do that, I just do all the processes complete. I'll turn this groove in here on both sides of this, and then pull it off, set aside, bring the next one, cut all of them like that. And I'll go through and then I'll drill all the holes, do those. Then I go through and then I cut where the tire goes, recess, and where tire goes.
How do you hold that to cut the recess? Do you have a fixture that goes in the center?
Yeah, everything's a fixture. Everything's a fixture. So I'm sorry for being out of the picture there, but I had to get them.
Tilt the camera down a little bit. That way it'll get rid of the glare. Just a smidge. There you go.
So I got these. They're still glaring.
Yeah, there you go.
Got these. All right, so I made this fixture. And it's got a nut in it and a little bushing. And so the wheel goes over the fixture. put this screw in it that holds everything. Tighten it down, stick that in the lathe, and then I can cut all this, the groove in there where the tire sits.
Yeah.
And then this is a fixture for bushings. I just had another fixture and I'm sort of reusing this one for my bushings. Bushings just start out at a 7/16 piece of Delrin. Drill a hole in the center of it, an 1/8 hole for the axle, and then turn them down to fit this the little section there.
Where did you get the Delrin from? McMaster Car or the Mexicans down there?
I bought it from McMaster Car. I don't know if you can see this or not.
Oh yeah. Little top hat.
Yeah, a little top hat with a hole in it. And that's my little bushings, you know, and they all fit. These were mistakes. The one I got right here is a mistake. I turned it down a little bit too much, and so they fit too loose.
CA.
But yeah, they fit tight enough. You can't feel the movement in them, but they don't hold under their own weight. They'll fall right out. So I made them just a little teeny bit bigger to where you got to sort of push them in there a little bit, very lightly. And they'll push in there. And then all the axle holes are drilled 1/8 inch, which is probably, I would say it's probably a little bit too tight, really. You know, because some of them will spin on an 1/8 inch piece of music wire and some of them won't. So if you just take an 1/8 inch drill bit and run down through there a couple times, it'll loosen them up enough and they won't wobble.
They don't go.
Well, they shouldn't. I haven't had a set that's done that yet. You get the holes too big, yeah, they very well could. You know, you might start thinking about sticking a bushing in them or something. You know, drill them a next size bigger and stick a aluminum or brass bushing in them. But there, you know, there's two pieces. There's one that goes in each side, so you have to have them pretty tight on your axles. You know, with a washer on each side of it. However you mount your wheels, I put a washer on both sides so it's not rubbing against a soldered washer. It's rubbing against a loose washer. Let the washer take the blunt of the rubbing.
I would imagine that if you really wanted to get slick with it, that Ina makes a bearing, a needle bearing that's the same diameter with the 1/8 inch hole in it, and the same width as that. So, you know, like a 1/2 inch wide and 3/8 in diameter with an 1/8 inch pass-through hole, and so you have needle bearings on there.
We had bearings for our RC cars that weren't needle bearings. They were just regular ball bearing, high speed ball bearing. Had an 1/8 inch axle hole, had about a 3/8 inch OD, had a flange on it, just sort of like this bushing, except it was a ball bearing, and you could take those wheels and just flip them and spin them, and they'd sit there and spin for a minute. So if you really wanted to get that sticky, I mean, you got a blank there with a hole in it. Drill that hole out to whatever size you want. Well, I mean, you're limited because this is cut out in here and stuff, but it can't go much oversized of what that hole is, but you can get close enough that You get a ball bearing to put in there. If you wanted to run 10 laps after you landed, and you're watching the clock and the clock's running down and you got 5 seconds left before 8 minutes and your plane's rolling 3 more laps.
That's why you put brakes on the axles.
Yeah, well then why have ball bearings in them?
All my airplanes got brakes.
I don't put any brakes on mine. You can sort of, well, if you got everything timed out right, you really don't need them. But when you're experimenting and you experiment with your time limits and stuff like that, like you had to do with that one airplane, you had to add a foot of fuel hose inside of it to make it to run the whole time.
Thanks, NASCAR.
Whatever you got to do, you need to get it down and get it stopped without, one wheel hanging up and affecting your landing points. But you can sort of pull the airplane sideways a little bit, with the lines while it's rolling out, and sort of pull it real slow, it won't affect the landing, but it'll slow it down. It'll put a bind on those tires and rims.
That's how my brakes work. It's just a piece of fuel tubing.
Same difference.
Yeah.
And you put it probably just on one side, probably just on the outside of the tires. So, whatever you pull on it, it sort of hits that rubber, and whatever works for you. There's 1,000 ways of skinning the cat.
Keep them entertained. I'll be gone about a minute.
I didn't get my cord for my camera, so I can't move my camera any farther than a couple feet away from my computer. I take you over and look at the setup on the mill and all that. It's just it's a rotary table on there. It's got a plate with a pin in it that fits the hole on these blanks. That sits down on that plate, and it's centered on the rotary table. And then it's got a couple little clamps that come over here and clamp it down, and then I just go in with an end mill and rotate that rotary table, and that cuts that groove out in here. And I allow a 1/16 of an inch for that web that it leaves. It leaves a web about a 1/16 of an inch thick. Now some of these wheels, I cut them down. They're thinner than a 1/16 of an inch, but not a lot. You're taking off a piece of paper, maybe, on each side. It's all about cutting weight down. These wheels that I made, these wheels right here are 2 1/4 inch wheels, and they weigh 8/10 of an ounce per pair, combined bushings and everything, just like you see them right here, complete. 8/10 of an ounce for 2 wheels. I don't think, you can't hardly get much lighter than that and have a nice aluminum rim. I'm not going into production on these, so I don't want you beating my door down trying to get a set of wheels, because it's a pretty long, drawn out process. Like I spent the better part of
6 months.
Well, I spent one day making all these blanks, and that was about 6 hours I spent down here making all these blanks out of this. So I have to cut a piece of this about 8 or 10 inches long, and then turn the OD down. turn the OD down, and then I got to start cutting slices of bologna off of it, which I can't cut all the way through because it sticks out of the chuck, 8 inches. So you can't sit there and just part it off, or it'll just start flopping on you. So you gotta end drill it and use your tailstock and go through there with a parting tool and part all your little donuts down to about 1/2 inch. And then you can take them over on the bandsaw and chop them all off for finish that little bit, that little 1/2 inch that you left inside of there that holds that whole, piece together. So then you end up with a bunch of these blanks that are rough. They've got a 1/2 inch raised spot on both sides of them here. So then here's where machining. Everything's about a fixture. It gets frustrating as all get out sometimes. So you got to make this fixture. And this fixture's got you sort of see a little recess in it. Same size axle hole. A teeny bit smaller in diameter because this goes in the chuck before you put this blank in. So you want it to be smaller so it clamps on the good blank. Now this is just a spacer fixture. It keeps this other blank flat and true in the chuck. It's nice and quick and easy. There's no fiddling around with the mic trying to get this thing to run true in the chuck and all that stuff. You just stick this in there, and that recess is where you cut this piece off rough. The outside smooth where you parted it with the parting tool, but that allows for that to sit down on there and sit flush up here with this good spot that you use the parting tool on. So then that's chapped. Then you can cut this one side completely flat. You can just chuck it up and then just flip it over and cut this one flat. And these are just a 1/16 of an inch thicker than what you want. So you take about a 32nd off each side. You get them down to 3/8, and that's your blank. Then you got a blank. That took me 6 hours to do 10 of these things, or 12 of them. And then it'll take me probably about that much time to do the 12 of them like this. And then it'd probably take me almost that long to drill the holes in all of them. So it's a 3-day, and then you got to cut where the groove in there where the rubber goes, where the tire sits on there. That takes another day or 6 hours. So it's all manual milling. There's no CNC or anything like that. And I make one up and I get my numbers and my settings for my dials and everything for my lathe and my milling machine and all that stuff up, and I double check it, and then I can, like, I got a DRO on the milling machine. I know that I can go down to 0.15, and that's the depth I need to cut this from 0, from flush on the surface, 0.15 deep. Flip it over, 0.15 deep, and I can just watch the DRO and cut that. But on my lathe, there's no DRO on that. It's
eyeball.
Eyeball. You practice and you figure out, okay, so I got to cut this for this tool. I got to cut it 70 deep. And then for this operation, I got cut 20 deep. And you just got to note those things down. And for each individual tool that you got, because they might not all be sticking out the same distance from your tool holder. So, I mean, I'm not a big, I know I could do things a lot different, a little bit different. Uh, but probably, with all the end play and all that stuff that's in this junk, if you got to go two directions, you're sort of screwed. I guess Sparky's doing his most favorite thing, playing with monocoque and electric airplanes.
Oh yeah.
Gonna have yourself a little toy there for Stevie boy.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, because I muted the mic for a while. Yeah, I just love this. It's my favorite thing to do. Monocoque and electric.
Two things all at once.
I got chewed out for calling monocoque monocute because everybody in the world uses it, and we're using the antiquated system of finishing dope and tissue.
Well, it doesn't look like a toy. To me, monocoque makes it look like a toy. And of course, everybody treats it like that too because they don't have any time. Sweat equity. You go out there, you buy an ARP, you crash it, you don't have any kind of bond to that airplane or anything. You're just buying a box of plastic and parts, gluing 4 pieces together. I mean, hell, even building plastic models, I sort of felt the same way back in my childhood days, building plastic models. I had to go all out and get the Bondo and all that stuff and change them all up and sand them all down, use car paint and wax and polish them things. And had some pretty nice looking airplanes back in the day and cars and sprint cars and all that. Sparky says, "What are you going to do with all those tires when you're done?" I said, "Well, I got 3 airplanes in the makings right now. One on the table, 2 more over there. Got another one that I'm going to be making a Nye Beamer. And boys, I'll tell you what, they'll get used up before you know it." If anybody gets into machining and stuff like that, you'll find out real quick that everything's a jig. Everything's a fixture. Okay. I made this fixture. And as you can see, it's a cone. Got a hole in it. These rims, the hole goes in there. This is made for the smaller ones. Slide that rubber down over this and it makes it fit over top of the rim for the smaller size ones. Let's see if I got one. I don't have one completely made anymore. You see here, it's the same size. So when you push that rubber down on there, it spreads that rubber out and makes it fit down on the rim. Now, anybody that bought these tires, you can make one of these out of wood. It doesn't have, this is aluminum. I had it and it was a piece of scrap. But you can make the same thing out of a piece of wood or whatever, and turn it on a drill press for that matter, and just make a cone shape and slide that tire down over it. Made there's all sorts of jigs here. And I was making the rubbers. I made this for the rubbers, and they fit over this for the small wheels, fit over this. I can stuck it in the lathe and then I can make them round because they come out square. And then I can just sand them around real, pop one off, pop another one back on, and just keep moving. But yeah, like I said, everything's a doggone jig. This piece is sort of a Morris taper, sort of on this end, with a pin in it, 3/8 pin, and I can put a 3/8 inch RA collet or whatever in my milling machine and clamp this in it, and then I can use this to position my rotary table. This goes down into the, let's see, what is that? That's a Morris taper number 4, I think, in the center of the rotary table. And that fits down in that Morris taper and centers that rotary table on 0 with the quill. So, and I made these. These are 3/4 inch extension and a washer, made washer. And then the nut goes down into that shaft extension through your prop into the shaft extension and sort of keeps everything locked in. Then the washer on there, and then this goes out. You cut this off whatever you need to for your spinner nut to go into. Everything's the same thread. 1/4 28. Pretty standard. And then we were just making a spinner nut, or you could use a socket head cap screw in the tip of your spinner if you want to. I mean, that's the way a lot of them do it. I know, innovation. You want something and you can't find it, you make it. Those wheels used to be made, and they quit making them. That's why I found some rubber after a long, hard process. And I cut a bunch of the rubbers up thinking, well, if somebody, I wasn't mail order them though. If you come to the Nats or if you go to any local contests like Brodak or Cleveland, I'll probably be at both of those. We can get some rubbers, replacement rubbers for your aluminum rims.
Is there going to be a Cleveland?
As far as I know, there is. I haven't heard anything any different. I haven't been on Stunt Hanger for a week or better, so I don't know if anything's been added in the contest section there or not.
I'm bummed out FCM is not going to be.
Well, you got the Nats in the world that's moved into August. And August was the month that they had theirs. And if you got 2 weeks worth of flying models in Muncie, and then ask everybody to come back to Muncie the following week after, and have 3 weeks, almost 3 weeks in Muncie, get a lot of whining and crying about it.
Yeah, but it's 3 weeks of fun.
Yeah, but if you're working, if you're still working and you're not retired and stuff, you got to look at it like that. That somebody's got to come up with that vacation time. And if you go down to Triple Tree, there's a week. If you go to out west there to Vintage Stunt Championships, you got a week out there, a week at Brodak, a week at the Worlds. Week at the Nats.
Well, unfortunately, I'll never be back to Triple Tree since the passing of our buddy.
That's a long haul for us to go down there. And then you got to camp. If you go down there, you got to camp. I mean, you could get a motel room, but you got to allow an extra hour each way if you can get a room. I think a lot of times they got other things that's going on down there that loads up the motels. And I heard tell that they're like an hour or hour and a half away from the flying field.
Yeah.
So that's a long haul. You know, twice a day, every day, for a week.
Yeah, Bob Zambelli, he just camps in his car.
You know, there's a lot of guys that, you know, just pitch a little tent out there. It's primitive, but he does have showers and that kind of stuff and bathrooms, and I mean, it's pretty nice as far as that goes. So primitive camping, you know, you can stay clean. You don't have to go a whole week without taking a shower or anything like that.
Were you watching the Hangout last night?
No, I didn't go on there last night.
Let me give you some news that Mark Weiss laid on us last night. The Nats is not going to pay for the FAI Worlds.
Well.
They pulled their funding. It's all over some stupid tent, supposedly.
A tent?
Yeah, a tent. Some tent got ruined in the wind, and if we want a tent, you know, that big 20 by 40 tent,
right?
We got to buy it ourselves. I don't know the whole story, so I don't want to talk out of school. Mark's going to find out more about it. But I think one thing I will say, I think it's pretty sad that the AMA doesn't want to support us, you know.
Well, they forget where their roots came from.
Just like Fox did.
You know, your roots are control line and free flight. Rubber powered. That's your roots. That's where everything stemmed from. So you got to remember, you know, where you came from and stuff. And they haven't done that. And you know, with the advent of new technology and all that stuff and radio control and all that
Drones.
stuff. I think drones really hurt everything.
Yep, big liability.
I don't think they helped at all. They created a whole nother ball game with, and you know, I sort of think it's with the military, because the military wants to use drones, and they're using drones, and the police departments and fire departments and all that stuff. And there's some good aspects of drones, you know.
You got to think about, where did the drones come from? The modelers.
They came from the modelers, yeah, and they came from guys wanting to have fun. But then you got the market flooded with cheap drones from China, and everybody and their brother, they became a fad, and everybody and their brother had to have one so they could spy on Josie down the street sunbathing in her backyard or peeking in people's windows or whatever, you know, and flying over crowds and trying to scare people with them and all that kind of junk, you know, stupidity. The RC guys never did that with their airplanes, you know. They but it was the people that were not structured, you know, that didn't belong to AMA and didn't belong to modeling clubs and stuff like that, that was really creating the problems. Yeah. I can see that they have a lot of good for search and rescue, farmers looking over their fields, fire departments wanting to see what's going on, police work, you know, chasing down some bad guy or whatever, you know. they have a lot of good things that could be done with them. Real estate agents taking pictures of houses, and they're just flying up there to get an aerial view of a house and coming back down. They're not harassing the neighbors or the dog or whatever.
Let me give a quick show what I'm doing here. How this mounting system works is this is some type of printed circuit board material. I couldn't find this, and I was going to cut it out of 1/8" phenolic, but since I cut the square out of phenolic, but it's a lot easier with the holes cut. So we got the holes cut there. This is a piece of end grain wood that you cut a hole in, and you epoxy this motor mount centered on this, and then you sand that to the shape of this, and then you sand this to the taper of the nose and stick it all in there so that you can put your nose ring on here too. I'll probably do that. I'll put the motor on it, put the nose ring on it, and sand this separate from the fuselage. And like I say, then that gets glued in to there, and then behind this, it'll get some little triangles inside here. So it's solid wood here, triangles there, and it's captured up on the top block, if that makes sense.
Is that a front mount engine?
I don't know. Front, back. Mounts on the case. It doesn't mount with the big thing.
Well, I meant close to the propeller or far away from the propeller.
It's close to the propeller.
Okay, so that's what you consider a front mount or nose mount, whatever, front mount. All your reinforcing's behind that G10 plate, isn't it?
No, it's in front of it. This piece here slides into here, and then there's the only thing behind it is a little piece of balsa triangle that's holding that in, but it's all epoxy. I mean, it can't come out of there. It's pulling against this, and this is end grain. Kind of like, remember when I fixed Jerry's Yatsenko airplane? Put all that put all that fill in front of it. Okay, I'm done.
Remember it. It all depends on what kind of prop adapter and all that stuff that you have, right?
Yeah.
That's something I never understood. They make those things. They're spinning a prop. They got a hardened steel shaft on the motor, and then they take an aluminum prop adapter and try to clamp down onto a hardened steel shaft. It doesn't work. That's why they have their propellers are flying off and that kind of stuff.
They could always put a little Loctite on it,
I suppose. But I don't know why they don't make that out of steel.
No clue. Like heavy, too heavy.
I can see. I understand they're looking at weight, but
you already got 25 ounces of crap in the nose. The battery, the motor, the wire, the prop. I mean, that. After I got to thinking about it and weighing that stuff up, there's 25 ounces of shit up there.
Oh yeah, every bit as much as a engine and a pipe and all that stuff, fuel tank.
And it doesn't burn off. Oh yeah, it's consistent. Yeah, right. Okay, great.
Yeah, but a fuel motor, it gets more tail heavy as the maneuvers go on. They get harder.
That's when you need
a little more tail heavy. And there's something to be said about that, I feel.
Yeah. Well, the airplane is balanced without fuel in it. So then you put the fuel in it, it becomes more nose heavy and more stable in the beginning. The only problem that I foresee, if the reverse wing over was at the end of the flight instead of the beginning, it would be better, because that first maneuver is when your airplane's the most nose heavy.
Right.
And that's the spookiest maneuver for me anyway. Reverse wing over, I hate it.
Well, it is, it's at the beginning when you're cold, when you're green. It's a really hard maneuver, but if you can hit it, you set the judges up, well. They're going to be looking for a top quality maneuver after that. But that's all about hitting bottoms, hitting nice square corners straight over the top. But I don't know. I don't know if they would really have enough gumption to do that as the last maneuver.
Oh, it's never going to change.
No, it won't change, and I don't see any reason to change it. What's it going to do? I mean, if you change the pattern,
Screw everybody up, just like the cloverleaf screwed me up for a long time.
Yeah, I never really saw a reason to do that either, but
Well, the cloverleaf kind of makes sense because it gives you a reference. Okay.
I don't know. I got mixed emotions about whether it really does anything or not.
Well, if you start from the bottom, you got 4 equal size loops. If you start from the 45 or 42 degree angle, you got a smaller loop for the first loop than the second loop.
Yep.
But, after doing it that way for 50 years, they said, well, we got to do it. We're going to change. I still find it, I still got to think about it before I do it.
Oh yeah, you go in there and you'll make a mistake and you'll enter from the bottom, and that would be a big point deduction. Pretty ridiculous.
And then you got Paul Walker starting the square loops from level instead of up here. He starts from level and goes up like that and then around. So I'm looking for that change to come because it's Paul Walker. They're going to write a rule to change the square to give you a reference, and that'll be difficult.
What do you mean on the outside squares?
Inside and outside, he starts from level flight.
Well, you do on the inside squares. You start from level flight.
Yeah, but on the outside squares,
on the outside squares, if you start from level flight, and then you got to climb and then hit the top instead of starting up there at 45. I don't know. It bleeds off speed when you take that first outside turn. You bled off a bunch of speed so that when you're diving at the ground, you're not going as fast. I don't know how they can get away with it without. I think it actually has it written in the rules.
No.
Where the starting and stopping points are.
Yeah, but it doesn't say how you got to get to that starting and stopping point.
Well, if it says must be entered at 38 degrees or 45 degrees or whatever, on the outside maneuvers, then.
It doesn't say that, though. Paul has been starting his outside squares from level flight for 5, 10 years, maybe 5 years.
Well, it's been a while. I know he's been doing it for a while. nobody really bitches about it, but he's the only one that I've seen doing it that I recognize or I've actually seen doing it. I understand that people are getting they're looking for change. They're trying to make change in something that really there's no reason to make change because nobody flies a perfect pattern all the time anyway. So if you don't have a whole bunch of people flying a perfect pattern time after time after time after time after time again, why change it and make it different or harder?
Because they can. Everybody wants to be the innovator, innovate like this electric crap, or innovate whatever, lost foam wing, which was a good idea, but
What, reinvent the wheel?
yeah.
Not reinventing the wheel, I'm copying what somebody else did. Probably back in the 40s or 30s. Maybe even sooner than that. Caveman days. Rock with a hole in it. But it's just something to do. I only do this stuff because it's I like playing around on my mill and my lathe and stuff. So that's the only reason why I do it. I can get something that you can't get anymore. So why not utilize it? You do the same thing. I mean, control line modelers are an innovative bunch anyway. They're cheaper than shit. They don't like to spend any money, so they end up making things, How many people make the control horns that go on their servos, in RC? Well, they make the bell cranks. They make their own bell cranks. They make their own flap horns and elevator horns and all that stuff. A lot of people do. Make your own handles. Buy bulk line, make up your own lines, anything to make it cheaper. I shouldn't say cheaper.
I think golfers should make their own clubs, and the baseball guys should turn their own bats. Maybe sew their own gloves.
Well, you probably come up with a lot of innovative ideas, as far as pockets and all that stuff, and club technology and everything. But I think they're actually even working on that now, as far as club technology and that kind of stuff for golf clubs and what the shaft's made out of. They got carbon fiber shafts now instead of steel, and all sorts of different kinds of composites and stuff. You can only go so far. There's only so many airfoils you can choose from for a stunt plane.
A shoe is a shoe.
Yeah, it actually works pretty good. I mean, it's about as close to a NASA 018 or whatever airfoil that you want to compare it to. There's a billion of them. And everybody's already done it. They've moved that high point all over the place. An I-beam wing, technically the high point progressive back as you get out towards the tips. Supposed to do something about the flight. Does it? Maybe.
Toilet seat will fly, put enough power on
it. Yeah.
I'm going to buy a new toilet seat for the bathroom here, and I'm going to take the lid off of it and build a flying toilet seat. Prove it.
I watched a guy flying a rag the other day.
Oh yeah, we flew rags as kids.
He had a little O2O and he tied the shock towel to it. threw it up in the air. We used 049s, but
I did a
I-
stick. I did a 3 foot long piece of balsa wood, and you measure 18 inches, and you mark it, and you put. Remember them metal motor mounts that you could bolt to the fuselage in half A. You
yeah,
bolt that on there, and then put a 049 on it. Then you take a dowel and you dowel the 10-6 propeller, and you drill in the center of that dowel. So you got to, take the slop out and get a little longer bolt, and you run a 10-6 propeller on an 049. It goes pop, 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 and then you turn, and then you get it screaming as much as you can, and you point it up, and it'll go real slow, and then whoop, off into outer space.
yeah. Les Bird made one of those things, and it went all the way from the flying field, let it off over at the flying field. He had a full tank in it, and it ended up 5 miles away in downtown Fairborn, in some city street down there. That they actually went and found it. But it sort of went out of sight. A pretty funny deal.
But 049 will turn a 10-6 propeller. Not very fast, but it will. Get it, bing, pop, 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 pop.
Yeah. Yeah, you got to get them set up to run real slow. Pretty funny.
Okay, I've glued my, whatever you call this material, epoxied it to this board, and then I'll take it over on the sander and sand it flush. Then I'll sand the angles on it to slip down in there.
That's called G10.
Whatever.
Circuit board, fiberglass. You had phenolic out there before. G10 is sort of the same thing, only it's just a little bit
It's tougher.
denser, tougher.
I burn up my jigsaw blade cutting this. I didn't burn up my jigsaw blade cutting phenolic.
Yeah. Well, see, that's got phenolic, I think, is linen inside of it. And then
Right.
that stuff is all fiberglass, glass fibers. It's going to burn some stuff up.
Like I said, I was going to make this because I couldn't find this, and then I dug in my stuff and found it. But
Is that a Bob Hunt mount?
Yeah, I was going to make it out of this 1/8 phenolic, but that shape there would have been hard to do. I would have had to drill a billion holes and file. I don't have a mill.
Yeah, it's nice.
You guys enjoying Saturday with Johns? Show your support. Buy us a cup of coffee.
I lucked out big time with my little milling machine. I knew its history and all that stuff, and it hadn't been used very much, and I got it for a dirt cheap price and stuff like that. But those things don't come around very often. You know what I mean? They be the right place at the right time and talking to the right people at that time. And
Yeah, I was in Dayton when you got it, but I didn't get roped into bringing it down the basement.
I took it all apart. For
Yeah.
the most part, me and Bobby, he brought the base down. Let's see here. How did I do that? Yeah, I guess we both did it. It was in about 6 pieces. We brought it down here, and it wasn't unmanageable. It weighs 675 pounds when it's all put together, or about 600 pounds. So you break it down in individual pieces, you're looking at 100 pounds a piece, So that's not too awful hateful. Them big boys that took it apart, it came out of a basement. And I went over there when I went over there to pick it up. They had 2 big boys over there, and they picked the whole mill up and carried it out in one piece out of the basement.
Yeah.
And walked out through the garage and then set it down in the back of a pickup truck. 2 guys. I'm like, not me.
You had some Missouri farmers there, huh?
Yeah, they was some big farm boys, man. They was some doozies, 6'6" and 300 pounds apiece. Yeah, they were some big boys. Now my little lathe, I carried it down. I slid it down the basement. I could pick it up and carry it from the car to the back door, and then I set it down. And I took a couple of 2x4s and ran down the steps.
Yeah.
And then I slid it over onto them 2x4s and then slid it down the steps. And then I just picked it up and carried it back here. Now it only weighs about probably 100 pounds.
Yeah, but the way that your steps are in that basement, it would have slid down without the boards.
Yeah, it would have, but I don't want to tear my carpet up, and stuff, sliding it down there. So put it on the boards and get underneath of it and keep it from getting away from you. Now I've seen guys that had full-size Bridgeports and full-size lathes and all that stuff down in their basement where they had to reinforce their basement steps and all that to get the stuff down there. I said, nah.
There was a guy in Wentzville that had a full Bridgeport in his basement.
Yeah.
Almost like you had to build a house over the top of it. I mean, it was huge.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And those things weigh 1,000 some pounds.
No more than that.
Pounds or whatever.
Huge.
There's an old boy that I watched on YouTube all the time, that Tuba Kane. I don't know if you've ever heard of him or not, but he was an old high school shop class teacher, machine shop class. And he's got Bridgeports and big lathes. I'm talking a metal lathe that's with a 6-foot, 7-foot bed on it down in this basement. And they took some kind of, I don't know how in the hell they did it. They reinforced the steps and all that stuff and got it in there with a tow truck. Back then, extended the boom out on the tow truck and picked that thing up and slid it down the basement steps. And then they put it on skates and steel rods and whatever, and rolled it around down in the basement then.
So you'd have to sell the house with the equipment in the basement.
I used to move machinery, and we would have to take some stuff out of some really wicked places. We've had to drill holes in roofs and pull the tie rods and cut holes in walls to get big tanks in, and we did some tank replacements on a rendering plant up in Columbus one time. That don't ever want to go work at one of those places. They get all the dead cows and roadkill and all that stuff, and they render that all down to make soap and glue, and we had to take these big tanks that were going bad in there out there, rendering tanks that held all that junk in there with the chemicals and stuff, and they were going bad, so we had to tear down walls, pull the old tanks out through the walls, put the new tanks in, rebuild the walls. It was a real pain in the butt. They left a forklift there, and they left their skates, they left their chains, left everything there because the stench on them was so bad you couldn't get it off. Pretty nasty stuff. Do we have any chatters? Anybody commenting? I guess we do have some chatters. Gary, Steve Berry. We got about 3 inches, maybe 2 inches of snow over here. What'd you guys get? You're muted or something, Sparky.
Can you hear me now?
There, I can hear you now.
Yeah, we got snow here. I don't know, probably 4 inches.
Really
It's
that night?
it's hibernation time.
Ah, we had people out there at 11 o'clock last night shoveling their driveways. I'm not going to shovel. It's going to be 47 degrees tomorrow.
It'll all melt.
I'll go out there and clean the cars off just so I can, if I got to go anywhere in a hurry, I can jump out there and go without having to clean them off.
Well, if the thing was muted, you didn't hear what I said. You were right about the sander. That's my favorite tool. I love that thing.
And you wish you'd get a bigger one.
Yeah, it'd be nice to have a 24-inch sander. Take the
And
nose of an airplane, go.
we had moved a machine shop one time that had a carpentry room in it, and they had a 36-inch disc sander. It was huge, 3 foot, and I'm like, boy, oh boy, wouldn't that be nice? He says, yeah, you can take a piece of oak on that thing, just go grind it away. They made all their skids and their pallets and all that kind of stuff that they would put their parts on. Oh yeah.
There's my mount. I'm gonna set the table at an angle so I can get the angle of this, and then it'll slide down in there.
What's the distance from the front of the motor to the back of the prop?
About a 1/2 inch.
So you're gonna cut. That's a big thick block. You're gonna cut a bunch of that off then.
Yeah. Yeah, I left myself enough that I can get the motor on it. I'll glue the nose ring to this and set the angle on this, and then set it all in there. And the way that I figure that how I can get it square on there is none of this is glued together. This is the battery tray. I'll set it upside down on the bench and then put a square on this and get it all square to the datum line.
You gonna mount the engine in at an angle?
Out thrust, you mean?
Yeah.
Of course.
Well, I mean, that's your typical thing. I didn't know what Steve wanted or how the originals were.
I don't care. I'm doing it my way.
Okay.
This is a Spectre. I mean, it'll have a couple of degrees out thrust. Out thrust is your friend.
Yeah, it can be. I haven't found a USB port extension cable yet.
Amazon.
I'm sort of trapped right now and at the computer.
I think I want to cut some more length off of that, another 1/8 inch off of that.
I can't move anything around. Started drinking iced tea, no pop.
Well, I started drinking that water, that Propel water. Better for me, I guess.
Well, I'm drinking unsweetened iced tea, no sugar in it. Of course, I'm diabetic, so been trying to, take care of that junk. Every year around Christmas time, and I think I know the reason why it does this. My sugars get all funky, and I think it's because I'm sitting around too much.
Eating them Barb cookies.
Do that too. All the Christmas cookies and Christmas foods and all that junk, and everything goes out of whack. And it, every Christmas, every winter time, it does that. Of course, you're not outside doing all the yard work and all that crap. Cutting and weeding and stuff. So you end up sitting around.
Eating all them Barb cookies. Boy, they were good too.
Oh yeah, there's a tin of them up there right now. Sugar cookies that she makes with less, less everything in there. Of course, you got to watch your carbs. It's really hard to eat because everything that I like, bread, pasta, all that kind of stuff, is really sort of no. But I keep telling the doctor, I says I'm not a rabbit, so don't be putting me on an all lettuce, all salad diet. You can put me on a steak diet, and I'd love that.
Oh, that'd be bad for you.
Couldn't afford it, but I loved it.
Yeah. Keep me entertained. I'm gonna sand for a second.
Just saying, I can't do anything but make noise anyway. That's sort of what I'm set up to do right now, is make noise on the milling machine and lathe. If I'm not cutting something, I got the shop vac cleaning up all sorts of swarf. And I try to do it as neat as I can by not having any coolants or anything like that on stuff. It's a huh. That's weird. It's yeah, it's pretty messy doing this machine work, and to keep the shop cleaned up, I say I spent 6 hours down here working on this stuff. Well, a couple of those hours were spent vacuuming up and cleaning up all the mess on all the tools, because it flings stuff everywhere. And pretty nasty. So I'm not as good as Sparky is when it comes to making conversation. My next airplane I'm going to build a night. I'll build a big I-beamer, build one sort of similar to what Sparky's doing. 60 size I-beam. And I'll do the pine spar thing. And it probably won't look like his. It'll look different, but it won't have exactly the same numbers or anything like that. But it'll just be a big I-beam. But I got to finish a couple airplanes off before I can get started on that. Get this GeoXL here off the table. It's ready to put tissue on the fuselage and the stab and the elevators. Flaps. I got to sand the flaps. And then put fillets in and get painting it. That's weeks worth of work right there. If I don't dawdle around about it. And then got that's another GeoXL and an SB23 that the wings are built on both of them. Well, on one of them, the wing is all the way built. On the other one, the wing is framed up. It needs the leading edge sheeting done on it. It's damn near what you could consider an I-beam, except it'll have a sheeted leading edge. At least the way I do my build up wings, you know, I'm cutting ribs out and hollowing the ribs out to almost nothing. You're trying to use 6 pound wood or better, at least 5 pound wood, and normally 6 or 7 pound wood, and build a relatively light airplane. You got to take out what's not needed. You really lose. I mean, an I-beam, you're taking out all the leading edge sheeting, all the cap strips, trailing edge sheeting. See, you're leaving a lot out. Have to ask him what did your I-beam wing weigh? Just the wing with no controls or anything in it.
About 4.5 ounces, 5 ounces.
Yeah, see, a conventional wing that's ready to put the controls in it.
Yeah.
Practically. Well, what's a regular wing weigh? About 10?
10, yeah.
8.5 or 10. So you see, you're saving all that weight by doing an I-beam.
Well, here is the sanded piece. This basically becomes solid.
Yeah.
It's got angle on it. You can see the angle.
Right. You did the angle thing on the fuselage sides, didn't you? You glued them with the curve in them.
Yeah.
Yeah. That keeps you from sanding into all that junk. What'd you end up with? You end up with 2 inches?
What, for the spinner?
Yeah, right at the front of the fuselage sides.
It's 1 3/4 the spinner that goes on this.
Oh, so you end up 1 3/4 in.
Yeah. And then when I get this glued in, I'll take it on that big disc sander and whack that off, this angle here off. So
Right.
I glue a block on there.
Be an easy cow to make.
There's no cowl. It gets glued on and that's it. It's a top loader, so the battery goes in, the cowl is on top.
Oh, okay. So what's going to hold the batteries in?
Either a strap or screw. I don't know. We'll figure something out.
Does Schaefer's Hobby have anything like Radical RC had that they're?
What do you mean? Parts and stuff?
Yeah, well, he had all sorts of stuff. He had Velcro straps and all sorts of different things,
Yeah, they deal in a lot of RC airplanes, a lot of RC cars, so electrics, so they probably got that. But if you want something for control line, forget it.
Yeah, that's
There is
pretty much the same everywhere on that.
There is nothing.
It's a crying shame, and it's getting less and less and less all the time. I saw Mike Lonke talking the other day. He doesn't think Britax will ever have ARFs back again.
Oh, I doubt it too. It's not, I think John lost money on them. I think the whole hobby shop was a loser. tax write-off or whatever.
It may have been. You know, he had so many different things going on at once. It may have just been a tax write-off for him. You know, you want to have $2 million and you want to become a millionaire, you get a hobby shop. You'll be just a millionaire. You'll be broke.
He owned the whole town. What do you expect?
Oh yeah, he had grocery stores and liquor stores and video stores and all sorts of movie theater houses and restaurants.
Police station, the city hall, printer, liquor store.
I think he was the mayor there at one time, or he's a congressman or something.
Yeah.
Senator, yeah, he had a lot of stuff going. He was well diversified. Talked to Buzz, and Buzz was saying he got stuff I didn't even realize he even had. Thought that was sort of funny. And I can see that, you know, he was an entrepreneur. He
had to pay for his hobby somehow.
Well, yes, yeah, it is. It's something that he really loved to do, and you know, he did it out of the kindness of his heart, and he donated a lot to other clubs and other functions, and I mean, if he didn't make any money, well, that's his business.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think, see, all that stuff was going on long before COVID, and I think he had a good inside, you know, to a place that was making him. He was probably making money at first on those ARFs and ARCs.
Yeah.
As you know, he would buy a whole train load full of doggone things and, you know, just sit on them and piece them out. And he had a lot of people that were sort of distributors and whatnot for him that so he didn't have all that overhead sitting at a shop all the time. But you know, I'm surprised. I'm really surprised that the workers have kept it up. You know, after his passing, I just
the sons don't want any part of it.
No, and Buzz can't handle it. I'm not so sure that she would really even want to try, even if she could, you know, because just because, and I really don't blame her. That's a lot of headaches for.
Tell you what, the town sure bitches when we don't come.
Oh yeah, you know, the whole place makes out. You figure he gets, I don't know how many people, 1,000, you think?
500 to 1,000 anyway.
You know, for a whole.
How big is the banquet? You know, I don't know.
I mean, for a whole week, you know, so some of them people only come up for a day here and a day there. So it's sort of hard to really tell how many people unless you're on the enrollment side. Now, I don't go up there for all week. I have a few occasions gone up there for all week, but I end up getting burnt out in about 3 days. Yeah, so I just started going up there for Friday and Saturday and fly Pampa and get you enough time to get out and go to the hobby shop, go check out the museum, and try to search through their rock wood balsa.
Well, I'll be honest with you, I'm not doing that again because they want way too much for their wood. I'll be honest with you, I like Brodex way better than I like the Nats.
Well, Brodax is not a contest.
Right.
It's a fun fly. It's always been a fun fly. Never been a contest. That the people going to it made it into a contest. But it was always meant as a fun fly, and it says that right on the flyers, fun fly. And so, it's made into a contest. Now, it's not the ideal conditions or anything like that for as big as it is, and they wanted to, you remember they wanted to cancel that out when John died and not have it up there anymore.
Yeah, but the town complained. Took 2 years off. They were freaking out. Where's the contest?
Yeah, where's all of our people at that's coming in? But they wanted to move it, to I don't know, Triple Tree or something like that.
It wouldn't be
that would have ruined it.
Yeah. It wouldn't be Brodax.
Yeah, part of it was the location, location. It's draw more people.
Well, it's the long haul for me from here to get to Brodax. But whatever.
Well, I think
it's 4 hours from Dayton.
4 hours from Dayton, 4 hours and a little bit, 15 minutes or something like that.
That's 9 hours.
I sort of set my goals of I don't like to drive much over 4 hours to go to a contest. Anything more than that is start to be work. And you're looking at more days on the road and everything, because if I got to drive more than 4 hours, even at 4 hours, I want to get there a day early and stay a day late. But that's me. That's how I work. I don't like driving tired. I could drive home every day from the Nats and stuff like that, but I prefer to get a motel room because by the time I'm out in the sun all day long and
it's cheaper. It's cheaper. Think about the gas that you burn up.
I use a half a tank of gas one way.
Right. So there's a tank of gas a day.
Yeah.
So how much is that tank of gas?
$40, $50.
So how much is a motel room?
$100.
Yes, and we split it, right?
Yeah, and then you got meals, which is $20 times 3. You figure it
times 5 is 100.
It's hard to eat for less than $20. By the time you go somewhere and you get a meal, it's $12 or $15, and you leave $5 or $6 tip. And if you get something to drink, that's always $4.50. It's you figure at least a $20 bill every time you eat. So breakfast, lunch, and dinner. That's $60 a day. If you go to Baskin Robbins or something like that and get a half a scoop of ice cream for $5.50.
Oh, what a ripoff that was.
Well, we use this little small scoop for the Sundays. Somebody's running a con job there.
Yeah.
They're making their ice cream last forever. I don't know. I know I'm gonna have to get off here and go eat here pretty soon. Check my blood and all that stuff.
Yeah, 15 minutes more, and that'll be 2 hours. That's what you guys get. We ain't making no money at this, so.
Oh yeah, we're getting rich. And you see, I went out and spent 30, you know that chunk of aluminum I showed earlier?
Yeah.
I priced it from McMaster Car. A, a 4 foot piece, that's what I got. Let me see, what was it? 2 1/4. Measurements here. 2 inches. 2 inch diameter, solid bar, 4 foot long, $179 from McMaster Car plus shipping.
$30 at the place, right?
$30.
Yeah.
It's got a little weather to it, you know, so you can't, doesn't look like a brand spanking new piece of aluminum right out of the dies, but it doesn't have a bunch of dings or scratches or bends or anything like that in it, you know. He cut that out of an 8 foot long piece. He cut it in half.
He cut it for you, huh?
Yeah, $2 a pound plus $5 for a cut if you want to cut. Well, he only charged me. I go down there all the time, so he only charged me $2 for the cut. But I know where another 4 foot long chunk of it is.
Yeah.
That'll fit my car, you know.
The Mexican guy do that?
Yeah, yeah. He's a good. Those guys. He's been there for as long as I can remember, and I've been going down there for 30 years. And he's been there. Both those guys, John and him, been down there for that whole time. And he says, "So what are you making now?" I pulled out my phone and I showed him a picture of my wheels. I says, "These." Oh, cool. Yeah. So anytime I need anything, I bought that edging down there for my garden out back for that steel, stainless steel edging. It was 6 inches wide and 8 feet long or 10 feet long pieces. About 10 or 12 of those things to put that steel edging down. And that was only $100 or something like that. It cost me 3 times that to buy it out of plastic. I wasn't going to use plastic anyway. I wanted metal, and that way you know you can run the weed whacker up against it. And you're not tearing it all up, you know, edging and everything.
Let me guess, that lady next door was shoveling snow at 4 o'clock in the morning.
11 o'clock last night. She did their yard. Her and her husband did their yard, and the guy across the street's sidewalk and yard. Whole length of the house and his whole driveway, which is right straight across the street from my house. Guy
Right.
with the yellow trucks.
Right.
Uh,
Why'd they do that one across the street?
well, I saw him walking the other day, and he was like walking laps up and down the driveway with a cane.
Oh.
And he's had some back problems in the past, so I think he had some back surgery or something. And so I think they found out about it, so they went over there and did his driveway and sidewalks for him.
Hey, why don't you do mine too?
I don't ever get to. Heck, I shoveled everybody's sidewalk from the whole length of the freaking block from one end to the other. How many thank yous did I get? One. One guy came out, lives about 3 doors up from me, came out and said, "Thank you very much, John. I appreciate that." Yeah, it was just for the kids. It was so the kids had a nice, clean place to walk up and down and go to school on. I did the whole block. Well, I got pissed finally because somebody bitched about me doing it, and so I just quit everybody. I said, "The heck with it."
You need to turn your snow blower so that it unloads your driveway into their driveway.
Yeah, well, I gotta watch that. Heck, they blame me. Somebody took a BB gun and shot out the windows of a van somewhere, and they accused me of my lawnmower throwing a rock and taking the window of the van out. Now it would have had to throw the rock up about 6 foot in the air from right alongside of the van. I mean, 3 feet away from the van. That rock would have had to go straight up as tall as I was to break that window, because you could see where this BB or pellet or whatever hit that window. It was right at the top of it. It was a van. It was eyeball height to me.
And you don't even know, they could have got that when the van was parked in a parking lot somewhere. And they didn't notice it until they got home.
I didn't even notice. I cut the whole grass right beside it. She come running out after I got done cutting the grass and said, "You broke my window." I said, "I did not." And we don't have a lot of loose gravel or rocks or anything like that around, you know. It's she called the police and filed a police report on it and all. And I saw her out there talking to him, pointing at the house here. "I think he did it with his lawnmower."
Nothing
Yeah,
ever
right.
came of it.
I mean, they didn't come over and ask me or anything or talk to me. So whatever. Turn it in on your insurance, get you a damn window. And what is it, $100?
I had a spark plug fly off I was following a car, or was a pickup truck, and a spark plug flew off the pavement. I could see the spark plug coming, and it hit my windshield just above where the oil change sticker goes, and put a spot in it. What are you gonna do?
Can't do. Put you some super glue in it.
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna do.
That's what they use, I think, on those crack repairs and stuff.
Yeah. Well, I watch Project Farm. You ever watch him?
Is that the guy that does all the testing of all the different things?
Yeah, he's got the Pharma Bagel,
Yeah.
Cousin Eddie, and all that shit.
Yeah.
So the Rain-X windshield crack repair kit, or the Permatex, those were the two best ones, I think. So I'm gonna get one of those kits when it warms up and fix the crack, or it's not a crack, it's just a spot.
Yeah. I'll catch it before it runs out, because that's what they'll get you for, is having a big run across the window. They're going to pull you over and ticket you for it.
That windshield, I replaced it once before. The windshield was $350.
It's not bad if you think about it.
No, not really.
It's a lot of work involved in cutting one out and putting one back in. That's
Well, it was made right there in Dayton. Hoo-wah, or Wahoo, or whatever the name, Wing Chun.
Yeah, right down the street here.
Yeah.
They've got another Mexican restaurant down there by that plant, the glass plant. And man, they got everything. They got stuff I don't even want to know what it is. But you don't see any dogs or cats around there.
Yeah.
They got, I mean, on the menu, they got tripe, they got you name it, and it's on there. It's authentic Mexican food. It's not, what was that other place? Aztec.
Yeah. It was good.
Oh, it's good, but this is Mexican. This is not Aztec. This is Mexican. There is a difference. I like that Aztec food. It's good. It's sort of Mexican sort of food, but it's not Americanized, I guess is what I'm saying.
You got any illegals there? I did talk to some illegals in Walmart there.
Yeah, they're getting thicker and thicker and thicker as the time goes on here.
Yeah, that's a sanctuary city.
Yeah, Dayton's sanctuary city. I heard St. Louis is suffering because they did a bunch of get rid of the cop things out there, and
well, you don't see no homeless people around here during the winter.
Well, we'd had them, and they'd have encampments here and there, but then they took They had some old train trestle, train overpasses and stuff that were concrete. And they would use those as little campgrounds. Well, they took them all out. So they no longer have those places to use as campground. We used to have this one old fella, he was around for years and years and years. Everybody called him Rags. And he had an apartment downtown. They found out after he passed away, and he was out on the streets every day, summer, winter, whatever. You saw him roaming around constantly. But we found out he had an apartment down there, and the guy was richer than sin.
That's how he got rich.
But he never spent any money. He ran around and got, Salvation Army clothes and donations and that kind of stuff. And he called him the Rag Man. He looked like he was wearing rags. So he was around for years and years and years, and then he finally passed away. But you knew where to find him. You could just go downtown and you could just about find him in these 1 or 2 or 3 spots all the time. Are you going to go to Cleveland?
If they have it.
I'll have to look on Stunt Hanger and see if they posted anything on there.
If they have it, I'll go.
Have you heard anything more about McDonald?
No, I haven't. Of course, I haven't. I could call him, but I hate to bug him,
Yeah, somebody's not feeling up to snuff.
Yeah, I could call him, but I hate to bug him. Yeah, we're coming up on 2 hours. I guess if you got to go eat.
Yeah, well, my biggest thing is I got to check my blood and all that stuff because of the diabetes.
See if it's still red, huh?
Well, yeah, it's a little bit different than that, but about the same thing, you would think.
I think I'm going to open this up here. For the wires to run under it.
Let's see here. Events. Central New York fly in.
Oh, yeah, let's go.
Isolated.
That's us. That'll be next weekend.
Vinny Stunt Championship in Tucson. Broken Arrow, St. Louis. That's stunt and scale. St. Louis, you guys have a whole bunch of contests there every year.
Yeah, we got the speed guys and
Well, I don't see anything listed for Cleveland yet. I guess I could call up Dave and find out if he's going to have anything, or John Paris would probably know. What are you doing? Taking it apart?
yeah. I'm gonna cut another 1/8 of an inch or so off, but I got plenty of battery room. Give a little more motor room.
You using a 4-cell or a 5-cell?
This is a 4-cell that he's got on it. But I think he's changing to a different battery setup that's smaller. This thing is 14 ounces.
Jeez. What kind is that?
A Yumi Ching Chong Haliwang battery. I want to leave myself a little more room for get the motor in and out than what I mean, it would work, but leave another 1/8 of an inch here. You know, anything worth doing is worth overdoing.
Yeah, well, you got to leave a little slop in there because I think, if you change brands of batteries, you want a little bit of room to be able to fit different brands in there. That might be an 1/8 inch difference or something like that.
And I'm going to cut a notch in this so that the wires have a place to run through. I don't know shit about electric, but I know shit how stuff should work.
What are you doing for cooling access and all that kind of stuff?
Well, I'm thinking about, it'll have a hole in it. I'm thinking about just leaving the tail post open and run it out the back.
Just to let it blow through, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's some people that's done that, huh? Did that, I think.
Yeah.
A couple airplanes. I think Jerry's Crossfire was like that.
Yeah. I built it, so so that's where the wires are run at the bottom there.
What I think would work the best for electric was when they make the roundness of the nose cone bigger than the spinner and they leave that gap around there.
I'll bet you $100 no air goes in there.
It probably doesn't.
The prop is moving around there and it becomes like a piece of plywood, like a solid board. It's going so fast.
You're probably right. Probably right. Probably doesn't get anything in there. Not even a ram air effect.
No.
I don't think you can make it big enough. You got to have enough space. Like an 1/8 of an inch there isn't enough. You got to break that boundary layer somehow.
In order for this to really work, you would need either the motor wide open or scoops, all the way around it, like sticking off an end. I don't know. And then you'd have to have exit hole twice the size of the inlet or 2.5 times size of the inlet. But I want to make this the finest ARP you can get.
Well, Steve's going to get his money's worth out of you.
Yeah, this was all I was supposed to do here. I did all this. Like I said on the video, it's just a whole lot easier for me to do it than to say, here's a fuselage. It'll never get put together if I give them the fuselage.
Well, you got to use up that puke green monocoat that you're not going to use anywhere.
This is Voodoo monocoat.
Voodoo yeah.
I bought this came from Radical RC, all this Voodoo monocoat.
Yeah. They had a bunch of old stock down there they were selling for dirt cheap. I remember that stuff. I don't like green. I hate green, so I would never. I don't care how cheap it is. I never get it or take it.
I just figured I got to use it up. Might as well use it on Steve. I had two, but they're not the exact same color. They're just a little bit different.
Well, if he doesn't care, if he doesn't mind that, nothing wrong with that.
Well, you can't hardly tell. I mean, you have to have a pretty sharp eye, paint eye,
Did you manage to get the flaps and the main wing out of the same stuff?
Yes. So the elevator stabilizer will be that far away you won't be able to see it. I mean,
Yeah.
it's so slight, it's ridiculous, but I can tell. One's
Oh,
ultra
I can
coat.
remember when I was using that stuff, monocoat and that stuff years ago, that you try your hardest to get out the same lot number, even white, and all your different colors. You always tried to look for rolls that were with the same lot number, real close in the same lot number, so that you got better color match on them. I gotta get off here. I gotta go.
All right, guys. Thanks for watching,
Time.
and we'll do it again next weekend.
Appreciate it. Thanks,
See ya.
guys. You should